So cannot wait to sit and debrief with my friend and brother, Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management, about his view of the election and the economy under President Trump if he is not assassinated, and pray to God for protection of President Trump because they've missed every other time. And if President Trump gets what he appears to want out of the economy, plus a chicken wing restaurant is the American stock market. Full stop. I'll ask Zach if I'm wrong. We'll talk with him next with the help of Bulwark Capital Management and their free live webinar at knowyourriskradio.com. And thank you to God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times to which God has decided we shall live. Zach Abraham joins us. Brother, welcome back to the program.
It's a good day, my friend.
Yeah,
it's a good day.
It is a good day. And you had made some predictions early on about how you thought the election would roll out. It looks like you had it spot on. You said it would end early, Trump would have a good lead. But then you said something interesting as we were visiting beforehand. You said this makes you believe in the possibility of vote fraud more. So let's start with the very, very beginning about why did you make that prediction?
It just, I wish it worked like that with investments all the time, but I've just always had a good feel for what was likely to happen. I don't recall being wrong in an election, a presidential election.
Yeah.
I just feel like you can feel it and you can see it on social media and, momentum's a real thing. Maybe it's my athletic background. Momentum's a real thing. It just going into that election, especially for the last 2 weeks, I just felt like Trump had a boatload of momentum and she had none.
Did you feel that way about Biden though? Biden versus Trump? Because
no.
Okay, so that way, so you were wrong then, but that's the big question, right?
No, I actually thought Biden would win.
You did?
Yeah, I thought Biden would win because, first of all, I felt COVID was crazy. I felt like the constant conflict with Trump and the media had exhausted people. And I felt like people were throwing in the white towel and just saying, I think the left obviously took it way too far. I think they overinterpreted clearly the vitriol. I just think a lot of people had Trump fatigue, and Trump fatigue after 4 years of Biden looked a lot more attractive. Right. It was that simple. But yeah, I thought Biden would win. Same kind of thing. I just thought the negatives going against Trump were too large. The other thing that's changed between now and then is you and I have had this conversation before. The saving grace of liberals is that they cannot help themselves. They always overplay their hand. And what they did in the last 3.5 years was prove all of the conspiracy theories about media collusion and weaponizing. They went so far that they inadvertently pulled back the curtain and showed to everybody that was looking what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think had they not done those things, I think that may have been enough to not lose the election last night. That may have been what pushed Trump over the edge. People just go ahead.
I think there's a lot of people who were animated by their belief the election was stolen. I think this was vote intensity. I think it was turnouts. I think there were people like we live in a really small community. There's 600 people roughly in our community. And my wife went to vote Tuesday morning, first thing, and there was a huge line at 8 o'clock in the morning. And again, 600 people. When I went to vote that afternoon, the first time I've waited in line for over 5 minutes. And I think I was in line 20 minutes. And that's at a tiny little fire station.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people like me. I know the election was rigged, Trump versus Biden, and I believe it was stolen. So I didn't want my vote back. But when I look at the numbers, Kamala Harris comes in at about 62 million votes. Joe Biden got 81 million. So 19 million Democrats just said, I'm out. I'm sorry. That's very difficult to believe. And I could see Joe Biden sitting there going, you suckers, remember when I said we created the most biggest, most expensive vote fraud mechanism in history. I said, we did, Jack.
Hey, so look, look, I've taken some flack for this, and I feel like my position has been misunderstood. I have never said that I didn't think there was any voter fraud that went on.
Yeah.
What I have said is I can't help it, man. The way I look at the world is greatly impacted by what I do for a living. And when it comes to things like that, like I need to see hardcore proof, right? And I don't want to jump off of proverbial, cliffs and
you can't, dude. You can't, given what you do for a living. No, I mean, you're a fiduciary over people's money, and you can't. So that's why I say I know it was rigged, because I can defend the rigging, and I think I can make the case it was stolen, but I don't have what you want, which is the actual, here they are doing it. Now, I think pulling suitcases of ballots out from under the tables while you're pretending that the building is flooding in Georgia and it's not flooding, and then scanning the same ballots, the same 80 ballots like 400 times. I mean, if something like that happened.
Yeah, no, listen. Okay, so perfect example is this. No, all of those. So here was my main issue. The why I just said, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
My main issue was this. If you looked at an electoral map at the last election, again, if you're looking at it through my eyes, all you see are a ton of crazy statistical anomalies, right? So many long held trends and relationships broken. Okay, but here's the problem. There was nothing typical about the environment in which the election occurred, right? Nothing. It was unlike any other election we'd ever had. And so I was sitting there saying, look, guys, I see the anomalies. The issue I've got is I don't know how much of that is attributable to how different this election is, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem now. Okay, there's no comp, or Todd, there's no comp to all of a sudden the vote total for one party dropping by that much.
That's what I'm saying. Like, look, I honestly believe this time around, I believe they thought, look, this, we've made this guy into we've made him into a felon. We've like, maybe we've made him a hater of women. We've made him toxic to his own party. Mitch McConnell's not backing him. Their internals had to be warning them. But I have this thing where they're thinking, look, I mean, this is going to be so close. We might need to add, a couple 100,000 votes. We've got those ready to go. We'll just put those into the machines. We'll do what we did last time, but not as much. And I got to wonder if at Kamala HQ, when the early vote totals came in, they went, print ballots. We don't have enough paper.
Cut down the tree.
What? Yeah, I mean, right. Start the paper.
Well, look. The other thing too is have the issues been fixed? Clearly not, and they need to be addressed. But the other thing too is they had a lot more eyes on them right. This time. I mean, they completely different environment, right?
Right.
And when I saw the vote totals, I figured I'd wake up this morning and the totals would fill back in. To my knowledge, there's never been anything like this on record where back-to-back elections, you've got a 25 to 30% turnout difference. That's unheard of.
And no one in the Mockingbird media is talking about it. That's why I look at this and say, of course they find it suspicious, because propaganda of silence is their most effective weapon. Don't talk about a thing, and to the minds of your victims, it never happened. Yeah. So you said it's a good day. I agree it's a good day. Praise God. Pray protection upon President Trump. Or Tuesday, Wednesday was a good day. So let's talk about this economy under President Trump, but I want to kick it off with the tweets you put out, and we'll do that in a second with Zach Abraham. So with all this chaos going on around us, there's a whole bunch of chaos that began going on in your body. Really chaotic. There are 600 biochemical reactions in your body that are regulated by one element, actually 7 forms of it. It's magnesium. And about 80% of us are short on magnesium because of the food supply, et cetera, and how we eat. Magnesium breakthrough solves that. It regulates your body's stress response, cortisol. It helps you sleep, stay asleep, and relax. Now, dig this. That's one of 3 products on a massive Black Friday discount at Bioptimizers. The other is masszymes, which I've been talking about, this insanely powerful set of digestive enzymes that has been shown to produce 1,200% more amino acids in our bodies, therefore more opportunity to build and sustain muscle. That's number 2. And then P3OM, super, super potent prebiotic. I take that every day. Helps with digestion and elimination and digestive comfort. These things stacked together don't happen very often. And dig this. At boptimizers.com/Todd, when you use promo code Todd, you're going to unlock savings of up to $100 worth of free gifts. Plus, the sale on these 3 items becomes a 25% discount. That's Black Friday. This is the perfect time to try the product stack I take all the time. This is what I use all the time. So go choose your health this Black Friday. Go to boptimizers.com/Todd. Use code Todd to get your chance at this $100 in gifts and a 25% discount on this 3 product stack. Boptimizers.com/Todd. Make sure you use code Todd to get all of these advantages. Here's what Zach tweeted. And this, to me, Zach, I'm about to describe the American stock market as it exists under the party. And this is your tweet, and it's me quoting your tweet. It's about a chicken wing company. So this guy, Paul Serra, writes, Wingstop went from plus 65% year-to-date to just 13% overnight. And then you wrote, shocker, a chicken wing restaurant trading at 20x revenues got slammed. I'm looking at this and saying to you, Zach, are you actually telling me that a place that deep fries the wings of dead birds was experiencing a 20-time revenue stock price?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, okay, wait, I did some research. These are the people who invented the chicken you can eat twice?
What do you mean?
That's the only way this makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right, no, because I saw your investor eyes going, wait, hold on, wait, they did what?
Hold on a second.
Wait, I'm short. Wait, I'm shorting these guys?
Yeah.
That would be the only way this makes sense. This happened?
Yeah, man. Well, and it's all over the place. Like we've said, you have anomalous valuations all over the place where you're looking at these businesses and you're like, it's not saying the market's wrong. And it's saying that if anybody sits down and does any math on it, that it just doesn't make any sense. Right. Like literally, another one like that. And look, I like Wingstop. Remember, when I criticize prices, I'm criticizing a market, not a company, right? Wingstop's job is to get the best shareholder return they can for their clients or their shareholders. And it's like, it's not on Wingstop, but it's just this market. Palantir is another one that we've owned before. Great company, makes wonderful software, growing really solidly. And yet we can't own it. And the reason we can't own it is it's trading at 50 times revenue. It doesn't matter how good you are. When you're buying something that expensive, the chances that value is realized are gains. And people don't really even understand. Like if you think that Palantir could double from here over the next 2 or 3 years, okay, like if that's your thesis as an investor, then you'd be talking even at their current growth rates, you'd be talking at a company that you think is going to be valued at 60 to 70 times revenue. And nobody sits back and actually does. What does that mean? If I look at your earnings and I assume they stay stable and continue to grow at this rate, and I pay this much for your stock, there's literally no way the company can perform at a level that will make that a good investment. And I mean a good investment compared to treasuries. So, right?
So Wingstop would have to. And let's just play this out, because to me, why I'm saying this is the American stock market is everything you says makes sense. But let's unfold this just a little bit more. So Wingstop, you say they're a good company, never been there. I assume they have non-deep fried chicken wings. Maybe I'll go try some. I don't think there's anywhere I live. All right. So they're 20 times revenue. So if they were to produce 20 times more stores, they're still not there. So if they, not even close, because now they've got costs, they've got capital acquisition costs. Their margins, they're in the fast food business. What are their margins? 1 to 3% or 3 to 5%, something like that.
I think theirs might be a little bit higher, but I mean, you're probably, I haven't done a deep dive into it just because it's so expensive on the face of it. We can't own it, but I mean, you're probably running somewhere. I would say probably 8 to 10, maybe.
Okay,
Maybe.
I think the White Castle CEO one time said his margins were 4% when he was talking against the minimum wage increase.
Yeah, well, and remember, remember how much more simple it is to make a chicken wing, right? Like,
right. Okay.
No bond, no
Great
mayonnaise.
Point. Great point. So their top cost is going to be people, like in most fast food restaurants. So getting 20 more times stores not going to do it. So they'd have to increase in-store, same-store sales by 20 times. That still doesn't get it done because you're still talking about a margin thing. So do I understand that for this to ever make sense, they'd have to take all the same stores and produce, let's say, 100 times more sales in all the same stores for this ever to make sense as an investment? Something like that. I mean, I'm not asking you to be exact.
Yeah, and so here's the way it kind of works practically, right? Which is people have to remember. Now, first of all, we got to take a little bit of that valuation with a grain of salt because they are a franchisee business, meaning
franchise fees.
Yeah, and a higher percentage of that revenue will fall to the bottom line than would be typical in a business that wasn't operating that way.
Fair enough.
But my point is that I mean, it can grow substantially, but people have to keep in mind revenue isn't how investors make money, right? If I buy a company and that company's revenue goes up 10 times and they still don't make a profit, I, as an investor, have made nothing on that. Now, maybe somebody believes the value of the underlying business has gone up, but as an investor that gets paid off of profit, when you're trading at that high a multiple, I'm paying 20 times your current level of revenue, right? And that's not even, and by definition, like you pointed out, your profit is a fraction of your revenue, right? You start seeing, wait a second, if I put this money here and let's say this company continues to operate perfectly, which no company does, right? If I stretch this out over a 10-year period of time, looking at the profit that my single share of stock would sell me, I would be substantially better off investing in a treasury over the next 10 years that is going to pay me 5% a year guaranteed, right? Like just meaning if I will actually make more money off that 5% return per year off the treasury than I would off of the cash flow off of that, my share of the profit of the company, right? And that's the way Buffett talks about thinking about companies. Don't think about it like you own a stock. Think about it as if you own the company, right?
Okay, so help me understand. I say all therapeutically. Zach, help me understand. Is this a situation again where people are buying the heck out of Wingstop because people are buying the heck out of Wingstop, which makes people buy the heck out of Wingstop? So then people say you got to have Wingstop. Is it honest to goodness that banal and simple at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, there's some, I don't want to overstate it, right? There's some fundamental, underpinnings. They've got good growth. There's always a reason.
Yeah.
The way I refer to it is stocks like this are perfect coat hangers, meaning they're legitimate, right? They're real, but they're the type of thing now that is perfectly suitable for investors to hang on them, all of their own perceptions, aspirations, dream, right? It's a dream machine. We can dress it up however we want to.
That's why it is the American economy.
Right.
It's a dream machine.
Yeah.
Math's never going to catch up with us. We are never going to actually have to pay the bill. No one's ever actually going to come to us and say, okay, we actually do want to sell all our bonds. We're not really going to have to deal with the population implosion. The illegal immigration really will save us because they're going to provide skilled labor. None of these things are going to come home and roost, right? We're not going to have states collapsing their pension funds. That can't happen. None of those things ever happen because of the American dream machine, which I want to lead into then. It looks like if God willing, President Trump gets into office, because he has been elected and he is the winner. If he gets into office, I want to talk through his economy real quick and what you would want to see him do. Zach Abrahams with his Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management. Hey, there is an economy. It shouldn't be this way. There is an economy of actual healthcare that exists outside this country. This should not be this way. It's tragic that it's this way. My friends that run this company would rather not have to do it out of Mexico. They would rather do it in the United States. They're very patriotic people, but they can't. And they want to be able to give you ethically gathered stem cells to help you overcome things, believe it or not, like traumatic brain injury. How can stem cells help with that? I frankly, I can tell you just the outlines. There's the inflammation problem that can cause so much in our body to be out of whack. The stem cells never having anything to do with abortion. They're just packed with building power. They come out of placentas and umbilical cords. They're designed to build baby. So where there's damage, they can regrow muscle, tendon, cartilage, and they just kill inflammation. The other thing about this is it's not just TBI, which I've seen great cases, great response, people leaving, walking when they came in a wheelchair. It's very common things. Like if you are just destroyed with back situations where you can't sit up, you can't stand down, and surgery hasn't helped, please reach out to them. Sometimes it's neuropathy, the buzzing, the numbness in your fingers. Please reach out to them. They can look at your medical records super quickly. They'll tell you if they can help you. And just tell them you're part of the Todd Herman Show family. And please make that clear when you talk to them. Go to renew.healthcare. It's RENUE.healthcare. This stuff is illegal in the United States. Don't let your surgeon tell you otherwise. They can't do what Renew does. It's RENUE.healthcare. So if President Trump makes it past, and God forbid I'm worried about him getting assassinated. I really am, because there were 2 shots taken at him. I think they were allowed to take those shots. If he gets into office, what do you think is the most promising aspects of our Trump presidency? He's talked about the tariffs, saying to companies like John Deere, hey, you could make your big tractors outside the country, but there's 1,000% tariff. He's talked about some certain segments of the society aren't going to have to pay income tax, first responders, people on tips, etc. He's talked about repatriating dollars again. I would go to one core thing, but I don't know what you say. What's the one core move you want to see him make?
Oh man, that's
one core move, man. I know what I'd say because I learned it from you. I learned it from Zach Abraham.
The one core move I would like him to see is to attack, to disassemble to some extent, and to contain the regulatory bodies in this country. I think that they have become constitutionally unhinged. I think that they are a clear and present danger to our constitutional rights. He has said, he made the comment that on his first day in office, he's going to axe Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC. I hope that's his attitude. And listen, I'm not somebody that doesn't think we need an SEC. We do. We need a regulator. Just if people really understood the way these regulations go down and how they're wielded against people in the industry when nothing's been done wrong, it's a very different thing once you experience it from the inside. And I think it's un-American. But there are several things that I think he should and would do. And furthermore, I think that I really honestly believe that the approach that he's going to take to the economy, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to see higher rates of inflation, most likely, than we would like. But to me, it is the only realistic way out of the current situation that we're in. It is the way that Trump's going to approach it. And that is this: we're going to have inflation, whether we like it or not, because of decades of bad decisions, right? And I think that die has been cast. The only real way to get through that with to make the situation better, but also to get through it intact, and the least painful way to deal with that is to look for productivity gains to try to contain inflation. I think by unleashing the economy, cutting tax rates, keeping corporate tax rates low, that gives you a chance to do that. I also think that, some of the other things he's going to do with the border are probably going to be bullish for inflation, wage inflation, right? So that's the key. If we can have wage gains outpacing inflation, then it's not going to be wonderful. And there are going to be things, there are going to be bad aspects to it, but that's the best way out, because the ulterior, the other scenario is to let it all go boom. Right. Yep. And that's not palatable for anybody. So, but yeah, I think that is the one thing I'd like him to do, because I think that's the biggest, contain and address the regulatory issues in this country. But man, it's hard to pick a favorite out of there.
So I love that because the regulatory stuff is hidden tax. It can be, depending on the industry, it could be a 30% tax. I think the steel industry thinks it's a 30% tax. Speaking of the steel industry, they need a ton of energy. So I want to see him go back onto, we're going to be a huge net exporter of oil and energy. I want to see him go into these electric car mandates and say to people, want to make electric cars? Make all the electric cars you want. You go build your own charging stations. We're not doing it. You've got the money. Go build your charging stations, partner with malls and other places that people want these cars at. We're getting rid of the mandates. We're coming back. Gas and petroleum is going to be strong and clean to the degree that can be clean, because no energy is truly clean. I want to see him do that. I'd love to see him come up with a clever way to get people to self-deport, people who aren't here to commit crimes, such as, we're going to need to go ahead and tax consistent payments of money out of the country that are being clearly sent to family members in Mexico. I want to see self-deportation that way. There's a lot of ways to sort of trigger that, because that creates then an increase in wages for the American people. I want to see businesses given tools first to make sure they're not hiring illegal immigrants. And then if they're not using the tools, then come around with some enforcement. You can't use illegal immigrants in your wage base, for your employment base. I think those things would unlock a lot of stuff. But I think that energy thing, that's the core of so many businesses, right? So if you got us back into that position, I think that's huge for us.
Well, the other thing too that he's going to do is he's got a very friendly approach toward nuclear, obviously, or in the parlance of George W. Bush's time, nuclear.
Yes, I know.
Right? And look, if you sit back as an objective human being and look at the whole grid situation, you look at what's going on with AI, the data centers, all this stuff. Again, if you're looking at it unbiasedly, there's only one answer, and it's nuclear. It's the only way to get there.
So is that that would be the purest, biggest change to our economy if we embrace this? And I know you've talked about micronuclear. I think that's what it's called. These plants,
SMRs,
yes, SMRs that don't require the big water towers, et cetera. They're much more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
How big a change would a switch over to that be in our economy? Because I got to think that's a renewable resource. They don't want to talk about it that way, but nuclear is a renewable resource.
It'd be massive. It'd be massive. And look, unless we hamstring ourselves, it's going to happen. And I think the way you'll get it, the way you're probably going to see it is that you're going to have small community reactors where multiple houses are tied up to them. And then you'll see houses that have their own, where they're independently off the grid.
Wait, houses that we have our own nuclear?
Yeah.
No.
You'll see that. And then they'll have power walls, right? Which will be giant, battery systems.
Wow.
So backup power will be there. So, if you want to just run off batteries for any reason, you're not going to run out of uranium. One of those SMRs will be able to power anything you want for as long as you want.
Oh my gosh. For
real?
No,
it's going to be amazing. Yeah, it's going to be incredible. And the whole the grid will be reimagined. You won't have to have a grid.
All right. Now this explains why the electrical companies are so obsessed with get rid of natural gas, force people to go electric now, because they've got to see this coming. This is the last chance to monetize these assets.
Yeah, so they see it coming. I think the only reason that they're going along with this is just political survival. They don't want it to stop. But they also know something, that is, you're not going to quit needing natural gas and oil. You're still going to need those, right? And the other thing is that you're going to need a ton of natural gas transitioning to this, because we're not quite there yet. You're going to have several years between when these types of smaller reactors are ready to roll out.
Yeah.
But what's going to bridge us to those periods of time, or through that period of time, is oil and natural gas. And you're still going to have needs for both of them. But yeah, it's going to be a wonderful thing. And what Trump will do is that is going to speed that process up. I guarantee it. I'd be shocked if he doesn't cut red tape and make it much easier for that to get done.
Yeah. And he should be the guy that does that, because CEO Trump, that's the win. If he comes in and he is CEO Trump and he lets JD Vance go do political stuff, he wins. JD Vance is a great communicator. There's so many things he could do. There's a couple of the factors I want to talk to you about. One is the pharma equation. And this is rumor stuff, but it's coming from very reliable rumor sharers. that the lawyers for the big five pharma companies called an emergency meeting to sit down and have a discussion about President Trump getting in with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., apparently going to be evaluating the FDA, the CDC, the NIH. So they're calling for this meeting. I also want to talk about retailers in an article I saw because we're heading into Black Friday season. And I want to talk about this because it's an interesting way CNBC describes a DEI situation. So let's talk about both those things. Big Pharma, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. coming in to, I would say, attack them. I think that's fair, and I think they need to be attacked. And then this DEI thing, and retailers, we'll talk about this with Zach Abraham. Speaking of Thanksgiving and by reference to that, the holidays, Christmas, have you made any plans yet to have wine in your home? And if you haven't, will you stop and give a fair shake, give a taste to Bone Frog Cellars? Give it a taste. That's what I'm asking. This is how we started Bone Frog Coffee. The first promise was the sample packs. Try it. You guys met Tim on the show. He's Tim Cruikshank's a retired Navy SEAL. He did 3 deployments on our behalf as a medic attached to the SEAL teams. He was then a BUDS instructor in Coronado, teaching people to be SEALs and preventing others from becoming SEALs. That's what BUDS instructors do, thank God. So he has Bone Frog Cellars. We had the 2015 vintage in our house, the Merlot and the Cabernet. It passed the test with my daughter, who's brand new to wine. It absolutely passed with just huge applause with my friend Tom, who's a connoisseur of wine and reads about it and collects wines and travels the world tasting wine. So it's a broad appeal. And you will see on the package of the wine and the bottles, the Bone Frog insignia. That's the sign of a fallen Navy SEAL. It says God Country Team on that. Great conversation starter at Thanksgiving, and 10% of proceeds go to support the Navy SEAL Foundation. So same thing we ask you to do with the coffee. All I'm asking you to do at this point is try the wine. And if you like the wine, then get drunk on it every night for the rest of your life. Well, I mean, maybe. No, it's just, no, I'm kidding, Alex. Alex is looking at me like, well, you're actually, no. Drink it responsibly, of course. Go to bonefrogsellers.com/Todd. You get 10% off the wines there. It's bonefrogsellers.com/Todd. And let me know how it goes. I'm genuinely curious. I don't drink wine, and Tim knows that, but I love him, and I think you'll love the wine, but let me know. bonefrogsellers.com/Todd. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Zach, has been apparently promised, and we should talk about Elon too. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been promised, according to him, a role remaking the National Institute of Health, the CDC, the FDA. Just a reminder for everybody, the FDA gets 40% of its funding from pharma. The CDC scientists get a rake on patents they help create. Both of them are dirty as the day is long. So rumors, but from pretty good rumor sharers, that the big five pharma companies have called a meeting, an emergency meeting, to get together and start to talk about this. First of all, pharma is so big, so much money, such high margin. Do you think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has a chance to remake that industry by remaking these regulatory agencies?
Yeah, I think he does. Especially because it's not just him. I mean, he's going to have the power of the president behind him, and and in that way, even the involvement of somebody like Musk, it's really fascinating because I think that you've got a bunch of issues that are legacy issues that we're dealing with that both parties have completely botched.
Yeah.
And I look at the people that he's surrounded himself with, especially the second go round. And I think that there is all the impetus, all of the momentum, and all of the know-how to get serious changes made. And I think it's really exciting. I really do.
I want to see him. I want to see him right now, and I hope he's in touch with Jim Jordan and Republican leadership. I want everyone at the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA on notice. All of your emails are on hold. All the records are retained. And the big thing at the CDC is I want an accounting. I want to know exactly how much money scientists made on patent participation. I want that reported to the public. I want them to see what the salaries plus are. And then with the FDA, I think he needs to come in and say, you no longer get to be funded by pharma. You don't get to, you regulate them. They're not your partners. You don't get to do this, so you might have to cut heads by 40% to get there. We're not going to be doing research on things like shrimp running on treadmills anymore. None of that stuff's going to be happening, right? We're not going to be handing out condoms to Taiwanese hookers who are same-sex attracted, gender deniers. Sorry, that's not our job. Our job is America. That brings me to Elon Musk. So you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the pharma and healthcare front. Musk coming and saying, I can cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. Does anyone doubt this? Anyone at all doubt that Elon Musk could make that happen?
Well,
mathematically. I'm not saying society,
no, I mean,
mathematically.
No, I think mathematically I don't think it'd be that difficult. The issue is that that's not going to happen though. Okay, and it's not going to happen because
you're kind of hurting me.
Well, look,
I feel hurt. No, I feel hurt.
I'm not saying it's not.
I don't feel
happen.
Validated.
I'm not saying they can't drastically lower the trajectory of spending going forward, but if they just did that right now,
yeah,
you'd see an economic collapse. Yeah, I mean, it would be a free fall.
That bad
because, well, it's been so propped up, right? So I mean, you got $2 trillion deficits, and the economy is growing by 3.5%. Okay, you got 7% deficits, and the economy is growing by 3.5%. Right, so. If you do it suddenly, now would you eventually get it back? Yes, because there'd be increased deficiencies and things like that. But in the short run, you'd be slitting your own throat, because then it'd be like, okay, Trump just blew up the entire economy, right? And this is why I said, let's not expect magic here. And if I was in the Trump campaign, or if I was part of his process, I would be hammering the table saying, you need to come out with an economic, not just plan, but an economic schedule, and you need to explain to the American people that we've got work that has been waylaid and kicked down the can for 40 years. Okay. And that we're not going to get out of this completely painless, but here's what we're going to do. And here are the ways we're going to attack it, and give us time and patience, because this took a long time to create this mess. It's going to take some time to clean it up. Right. But, maintaining those corporate tax cuts is a big piece. What do you mean? They're losing out on corporate revenue. Nonsense. The companies that, if they let those corporate tax rates expire, my guess is that would be more deleterious. That would have a larger impact if they this is my opinion, if they let those tax cuts expire. I think it would result in less revenue over the next 5 years than otherwise, because you'd have more companies leaving.
There's always gosh. Now we're actually going to talk about the Lafleur curve, because it's a real thing. There is a point to diminishing return for taxation, and when it's cheaper to offshore your companies, you offshore your companies. President Trump showed that the first time. That was just a mathematical decision. That CEO Trump said, "Do you guys know why people do this? Because it's cheaper for them to hire tax accountants and offshore their stuff and tax lawyers than it is for them to invest in R&D and bring their companies back to America." That's why they do it. It's just math. So, yep. Okay. So then let's get into the retail sector here in a second, because this was fascinating the way that CNBC chose to view a DEI thing. And we're headed into that time, the Black Friday time. We'll talk with Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management. You're probably going to have family in your home coming up for the Thanksgiving and Christmas season. And I really want to challenge you to do something. And that is to start a conversation with your family about betting on companies that bet on life. And Alan Soaps has been doing this for a long time. This is a home for Alan, who otherwise would be unemployable, because that's how he's viewed. He's not. He's a brilliant kid. It's not his fault that he's high up on the autism spectrum and that he's got these structural health issues. It's not his brother Ian's fault that he is highly impacted by autism. It's none of their faults. The young woman who got autism late in life, it's not her fault. She didn't want that. So they're unhireable except at Allen's, and there they work in real things. Social media. It's a big, big thing for this young woman. She's good at it. Allen invents soaps, and he packages soaps, and he does quality control. Ian does some of the same things. And the soap is made by a family, and they're good friends with John and his family. John runs Allen Soaps. He's Allen's dad. They've been making soaps for 3 generations. They don't use chemicals. They won't. It's all natural, period. The fragrances are unique, and there's fragrance-free soap. So the conversation is this through Christmas. Give everybody a bar or 4 of Allen Soaps. Talk about the company. Talk about here's how we prove all lives matter, and give people in their packages when you give them the soap, giving them opportunity to go make a DIY monthly delivery. You can get subscription soap. You do this, maybe we hire 3 more young people at Allen's this year, Go to allensoaps.com/Todd. You get 10% off all their products there. That's allensoaps.com/Todd. Zach, this is from CNBC. The headline, retailers brace for DEI blowback and lead up to election, holiday shopping season. Retailers are facing a tough equation as they head into the all-important holiday shopping season, this time over DEI initiatives. Companies are bracing for blowback related to policies around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and are hoping to avoid alienating customers who may deem the brands too woke or not woke enough. Some are tapping outside advisors for advice on how to avoid criticism, while others are opting out of public events on this topic as backlash against equity and inclusion programs grow in the lead up to the 2024 elections. CNBC spoke with a number of retail industry insiders, strategists, and staffers who spoke on the condition of anonymity to do so candidly. There's a clear sentiment in the retail community that no one wants to get tractors supplied, said one retail industry insider, referring to the company's decision to walk back a series of DEI initiatives after conservative activist Robbie Starbuck criticized the policies online. Yeah, Robbie did criticize them. You know what else he did? He found them because Tractor Supply wasn't promoting them. He surfaced them. He showed people what they were. Then other people criticized. Robbie did the investigating. I find it really interesting that here there's no discussion about not doing it. It's how to avoid criticism and how to hide it, and hiring outside consultants to come and tell them how to do that.
Yeah. So look, I think a lot of these people, and I think it's mixed, right? I think a lot of them are just bowing to what they saw, the pressures or the social winds blowing.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that a lot of these corporations are a product of the product of the university system in our society. But I think that there's something missing, and a really good and a good CEO, not even really good. I think a good CEO would pick up on it. I think that there are massive opportunities to go out there with a nakedly un-DEI message, an un-DEI approach, and even clothing that says certain things on it that are un-DEI. And I think they'll clean up. The number one thing, and again, a part of me is glad by this because it always gives you hope. But one of the things, good or bad, about the Democrats is if there's a message to get out of this election, the one thing you can hang your hat on is they ain't going to get it. Yep. Right. And what that election said, it said, no matter how much flack and nonsense and lawfare and all of this that you throw at us, no matter how in bed you are with the media, we've had enough. And I think one of the most, and it's sad because it's not going to get, this was one of the most bipartisan elections ever. Record voters for a Republican candidate from all across the minorities, and not by barely.
Yep.
Massive numbers. We haven't had, you talk about a mandate. There hasn't been a mandate in this country like this in probably 25 years. I don't remember one. Neither of them. You could probably say Obama's second election was this strong, or maybe it was his first one. Whichever one was stronger.
Yeah, I think first one was like he was the Messiah.
Yeah, and I think that that's the best comp. We haven't had in the elections have all been too tight, going back to 2000, right? Bush v. Gore. There hasn't been this level of a mandate, and so that's the sad part about it to me, because that if you're really looking at the body politic through the lens of racial integration and wanting to get rid of racism, that was the best outcome we've ever seen, right? Like, meaning what it shows you is that political parties no longer dominate minorities, that minorities are evening, you know what I mean? Like if you're not looking at it through this myopic lens of outraged liberals, and you're really about racial equality, that election was a big step in the right direction.
Huge. And it shocked people in the Mockingbird media that the blacks and the Hispanics and the Asians, they're seeing this. I mean, you can watch
get hit the hardest by these policies.
I know, because they also are human beings. Right. They also drive by the homeless camps and say, "Oh, Dio, oh, insanioso." It's insane. You have Hispanic people, you have black people going, "Why are our cities this way? Why are costs?" That's not a girl. That's a boy. He's a dude. And you have the Democrats saying, but they're going to put you all back in chains.
And 40% of Black-owned businesses shut and never opened again in COVID. People are ticked, man. And like I said, the one saving grace of liberals is they're never going to get it, right? Like, and they're always going to overplay their hand. And like, I put out a tweet today that said, Joy Reid's out there, Kamala Harris lost because she's a woman of color. And I went, Joy, Kamala Harris didn't lose because she was a woman of color. As a matter of fact, being a woman of color was probably the only reason the election was close. She lost for the same reason she couldn't pull 1% from your party's primary. She's an empty suit and a horrific candidate.
Yeah.
Right? Your own primaries told you that.
But with a joyful laugh.
Yeah. It's just incredible.
I know.
She lost because you floated a horrific candidate. And the proof of it is guys like you and I were sitting there saying, that's who you're putting up?
Yeah.
Here? Like that? Really? Remember me saying I thought it was going to be Newsom because I was like, yes, I know he's got high negatives, but he can talk. Right? Like, I never dreamed that they'd roll her out. And when they did, it was kind of like, seriously?
She had too much on them. Her people had too much. Just think what they could have said. Oh, Hunter's cocaine? Yeah, we'll talk about that. And by the way, I got to, I hadn't wanted to talk about this. I'm loyal to my party, but there was an occasion where President Biden was pretty handsy with me. He'd proposition. You think no? I didn't think about it. No, I hadn't thought about that angle. I guarantee she had this all loaded and where the money's at and what's really going on in Ukraine. You're giving me my shot. I'm going to cry racism. Now, on the other end of this.
I would explain it because I still don't understand why they picked her. It was a loser the minute they picked her.
Right. But I have this image of Joe Biden waking up when he's, in the early morning when he has, he's reasonably alert. And I can see him being woken up with his ice cream and vanilla toast and stuff. And how the returns look? Well, sir, it's 226, 288. Trump won. Open the pardon office.
You know what's funny is I actually don't think he was upset about last night.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think he was giggling and calling Kamala, hey, kiddo.
What I would love to know is who he voted for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could totally see him going in there secretly pulling the lever for Trump.
Or maybe not voting.
Yeah. And tell me something. You think? I wonder what the rates are now at the pardons for sale office, because you got deranged prosecutor Jack Smith. Hi, Mr. President, Jack Smith. No, hello. Oh, we got to go over there. I mean, and here's
the other thing: Trump can pardon himself, right?
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'd like. Yeah. For his sake, I am person to person, right? Politics aside.
Yeah.
I am grateful that he has that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what else he could do is put himself in the hospital for a day, make J.D. Vance acting president. J.D. Vance could pardon him. He could come back and go, I'm stunned. I'm stunned. Look what he.
Thank you.
Right. And by the way, tell me that Hunter Biden's not the guy doing the bargaining on the pardons for sale. I know you got to call Hunter. Hey, man. Hey, listen, we can do a lot of business here, but I need you to come over and bring the girls.
Yeah. Hey, look, here's another one. You want to talk about a great bet that I'm sure there isn't. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I should check into this. But what a great bet would be. Well, the odds of it are going to be horrible. But what do you think the odds are that Biden sticks to what he says and doesn't pardon Hunter before he leaves the White House?
Oh, zero.
Yeah. And I'm guaranteeing you're not going to hear anything about it in the mainstream media.
Unless he and Trump have a deal.
What could he offer Trump at this point? What could he deliver?
So
to have him pardon Trump?
For the good of the American people, I've had my challenges with President Trump, that it's just a policy. But just unite the country. I've issued a pardon.
To make sure Trump doesn't go after him?
President Trump issued a pardon, a clean slate. I just hope he uses this responsibly. He and I have spoken. It's
the American people.
It's a bet on the American people. I believe in the electoral process.
And then President Trump comes in and says, "Look, he done wrong, and Hunter, he did the wrong things, and but we're gonna be united. I'm a uniter. That's what I've always been, a uniter." And then he pardons Hunter, and then that stuff goes away. That's one possibility. But I want to see full-fledged investigations of Fauci, Jack Smith, the DOJ. I want the cartels out of our cities. I want our borders locked up. I want our elections secure. There's a lot for President Trump to do, and yep, I'd love to see energy as a big part of that. So,
I agree.
Yep. Thank you for coming on, my brother, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management, Zach Abraham, doing a live free webinar. If I talk too much about it, then I got to do the disclaimer. So let's not do that. Just go to knowyourriskradio.com and check it out. This is the Todd Herman Show. Lord, thank you for Wise Counsel Day. Of course, you are the one who reminds us to seek wise counsel, because make fewer mistakes that way. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind. Please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.